So, I'm Bill Drake, and I teach at the University of Zurich, and I'm the chair of the Non-Commercial Users Constituency in the GNSO, which is the part of ICANN that makes policy for generic top-level domains. The NCUC started in 1999. It's a civil society coalition that represents non-commercial users and non-commercial uses, promotes non-commercial uses or spaces on the internet. Presently, our membership is about 350 members. We have, I think, about 95 non-commercial organizations and 260-something individual members from over 80 countries. Two-thirds of our members are actually from outside the United States. So we are actually probably one of the most globalized parts of ICANN and most diverse, which is interesting. So, historically, NCUC has been very involved in promoting civil liberties type concerns. So, privacy, freedom of expression, access to knowledge, ensuring that trademark protections and other intellectual property rules are not overly restrictive in limiting people's ability to access and use information. These have been sort of the core parts of NCUC's agenda. So, our activities in ICANN are fairly diverse. We participate in the policy development process within the GNSO at several levels. Our members get engaged in working groups that work on developing policies on particular aspects of the GTLD policy space. Also, our members are involved in electing people to the GNSO Council, where they then serve. The GNSO Council coordinates the policy development process and ultimately votes and takes decisions on things that then go to the board of directors. So we're engaged directly in the policy development process, which is a unique thing. In many other international institutions where civil society tries to participate, where civil society is frequently consigned to the role of providing a viewpoint and input, and then governments go off and make the decisions. And here in ICANN, actually, we have votes. Our representatives have votes. We participate in what's called a stakeholder group level. NCUC is a constituency within the non-commercial stakeholder group. And our members who are elected by the NCSG, the larger stakeholder group, participate in the policy process and actually have votes alongside the various business groupings on policy outcomes. And we engage in other kinds of activities, including outside ICANN. We participate, for example, in the Internet Governance Forum of the United Nations and other kinds of forums where ICANN issues are coming into focus and being debated by a wider section of the global community. So in all those things, we're trying to support the multi-stakeholder process, to engage with counterparts from other parts of the ICANN community, and try to work out consensual positions that balance the different interests of all the players and also represent the larger global public interest to the extent that one can understand exactly what that means. Membership in the non-commercial users constituency is open to anyone who's from the nonprofit civil society sector of society and is interested in promoting the kinds of goals, values that the non-commercial part of the community is engaged in. It's a fairly simple process. You go to our website, ncuc.org, you click I want to join. You have to join the stakeholder group of which we are a part, and then you select the constituency, and you become a member of both the stakeholder group and the constituency. It's not a complicated process, and the applications are reviewed on a fairly monthly basis, and so we're continually adding new members, and it's fairly simple. Because we have new people coming into NCUC all the time, we are fairly used to trying to facilitate their entry into what can be a rather confusing and sometimes overwhelming world. And ICANN, you walk in as a newcomer off the street, and often you can feel like you're awash in acronyms and processes that have been going on for a long time, and it can be difficult to figure out exactly how do you slot yourself in and make yourself useful. We had, starting at this meeting, the London meeting, a special outreach session, which we did. We've never had one before. This was something I worked on with the staff, where we held a meeting with a variety of non-governmental actors who are not currently involved in ICANN. So we had people coming from the London-based NGO community, civil rights groups, privacy groups, so on and so forth. And we tried to talk with them about what are the issues going on in ICANN, how does ICANN touch on their areas of interest, if you're working on development or if you're working on privacy, if you're working on human rights and freedom of expression, which aspects of ICANN's activities directly address your kinds of concerns and how you might get engaged. And that was a very useful thing too, and we'll be doing more of those going forward. And I got involved in the larger global internet governance debates, both as an academic and as a policy advocate. And I kept thinking that ICANN was quite narrow. Well, you know, it's just names and numbers. It's one small part of the larger nexus of issues with intellectual property, privacy, digital trade, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I stayed out. And then finally, it became very evident to me throughout these negotiations that were going on in the United Nations in the early part of the last decade that, in fact, ICANN's role was becoming more and more controversial, more and more important in the larger ecosystem of global internet governance, that the model that people were building of multi-stakeholder cooperation here really was important to the larger set of issues. And it really didn't make sense for me to not get engaged. So I moved from a position of thinking ICANN was too narrow and bounded for my interest to recognizing that, in fact, ICANN's work is really central to the whole global internet environment and that I had to be a part of the debates around it. So I came with some reluctance, but once I did, I realized there's so much going on. There's so much energy. There's so many interesting issues. There's so many interesting people to interact with, to debate with, to argue with, to negotiate with, that I became hooked. And this is what happens, I think, with a lot of people that I know. I have a lot of colleagues who see themselves as ICANN addicts, which is not probably the healthiest thing in the world, but it's an indicator of both the vibrancy of the ICANN environment and the importance of the issues we work on.